Am I the antagonist for asking new lake friends who don't understand boundaries to respect them because it feels like they're stalking us? My husband and I have a lake home. We've been there almost 4 years. In that time, we've become good friends with a few other households on our corner of the lake. Some of our group is quite outgoing, always meeting new people in our lake community and being welcoming, us included. Everyone's awesome, but one couple has become problematic. Last year we met Roger and Helene, who have a seasonal cottage on a different part of the lake. They're around weekends. They check in with us, our friend group, when in town or stop by unannounced. This is fine. What's hard is they want to get together all of the time and don't seem to accept it when we tell them we're busy. They get in their boat, drive over to our area, and anchor straight in front of our properties. It makes everyone uncomfortable. They'll stay there for an hour plus. If we're working in the yard, they'll repeatedly go by, telling us to quit working to join them. Other times, when at the campfire, they'll dock their boat at one of our docks, then join us at the fire without the invitation. They'll also drive or walk over from their place to check up on us, even after being told we're not available. When we're in our boat, they'll drive theirs over and say, "Let's tie up the boats so we can hang out on the water together." Normally it's fine, except for when we're hosting guests. We've struggled with how to say no. My husband and I would never say, "Let's tie up," to other boaters. We would swing by, say hello, then see if we're invited. If not, we move along. That's protocol, but it's lost on Roger and Helene. Recently, out-of-town friends who have been to the lake a few times declined our invitation to visit, citing that they don't like the visits being interrupted by the neighbors, specifically Roger and Helene. Our core friend group is very respectful about visitors, so we knew who was the issue. Our corner of the lake complains about these two all the time and has struggled with how to handle their constant orbiting. Having a visit invitation turned down because of them made me extra annoyed. So 2 weeks ago we were on our pontoon with friends when Roger and Helene showed up and said, "Let's tie up." We'd already told them we were busy via text when they checked in, but apparently they just couldn't resist coming out when they saw us. Being extra annoyed, I finally spoke up. "Sorry, we're good. We're entertaining. We'll have to get together another time." Later, I got an angry text from Helene. She said I was rude and embarrassed them. I texted back saying I was sorry they felt that way, but they needed to respect when we're busy, and that at times my husband and I felt stalked. Haven't heard from them since. A couple of our core friends say I shouldn't have said anything, that their stalking isn't a big deal, they're nice. This is surprising and upsetting me. I thought they'd understand why I spoke up, plus I didn't drag any of them into it. Am I wrong? Am I the antagonist in this situation? It sounds like you've been dealing with a tricky situation with Roger and Helene, who seem to have trouble respecting boundaries. It's understandable that you spoke up to assert your need for space, and your friends' differing opinions on the matter can be frustrating. Your feelings are valid, and setting boundaries is important for maintaining a healthy dynamic with neighbors. Would I be the asshole if I gave my sibling a reality check about our horses? Premise: my and my sister have the same mother but different fathers. Me, 19 years old, and my sister, 36 years old, have been keeping horses for about a year with the help of my family and her husband. Currently, my sister owns a horse around 20 years old, Cloud, while I recently bought a green 5-year-old horse, Frida, that is currently being trained after having a few mishaps with previous horses, mostly behavior problems that could not be resolved within our possibilities. However, I noticed that my sister really dislikes my trainer, and according to her judgment, she's going to ruin my horse, but so far my horse is getting significantly better. Still doesn't want my trainer to get anywhere near her horse, but has given me permission to use it after asking permission from her or her husband. And so far, they always said yes, even if not completely happy, so whenever my trainer wants to go for a hack, I just use my bike while she rides my horse. And so far everything was quiet. Yesterday my cousin, whom my sister also hates, wanted to tag along for a hack, and I gave her my bike, which forced me to ask my sister if I could take her horse. I specified I wouldn't let it gallop and let it take breaks. And she said yes, so me, my cousin, and my trainer went on with our thing. However, while I was away, my sister came alongside her husband to the stables. And according to my parents, they were a pretty angry argument. And their conclusions were every own is forbidden. I'd like to remind that during this argument I was not present, and if it wasn't for my parents telling me, I wouldn't have known about any of this. So I wrote a text for my sister reminding her that since she wants to be so possessive about things, it would be good to remind her that my parents own the stables and the property, we pay for the water and electricity, we own the equipment they use to ride, and even if we split the costs, I am the ones always making the car ride for hay and feed every 2 weeks in addition to being the one trying to give my niece the chance to jet close to horse, since her mom is close to horse since, but I think I would be the jerk because again, I was not there during the argument. And I don't know her perspective, so for now, I'll just wait and cool down before sending the message and ultimately ruining the relationship with my sister. It seems like there's a misunderstanding about the boundaries and responsibilities in this horse riding situation, but it's great that you're considering your sister's feelings and perspective before reacting. Maybe a calm and honest conversation with your sister could help clarify things and find a solution that works for both of you and keeps the family dynamics harmonious. After all, family drama is no fun. especially when it involves horses. Am I the antagonist for saying no to my mother-in-law's visit? For background, I get along really well with my wife's parents. We live very far from them, so when they do visit, I genuinely enjoy spending time with them and encourage the bonds they have with our kids. However, over the past year, my mother-in-law has been asking to visit us by herself within a month or two after her and my father-in-law just stayed with us. Their visits are typically 6-8 weeks, and when they leave, we're sad for a few days, but quickly adapt to being a nuclear family in our own space again. I'm not sure if it's because it's just the two of them in their home, boredom, jealousy of the time my parents have with the grandkids, who also live very far from us, or a combination of all three, but my mother-in-law has been spending at least half the past year with us and pushing for more frequent visits alone. I thought it was just me overthinking things, but my wife brought it up recently and asked me if I was okay with her mom being around more frequently. She knows I love her parents, but she also gets tired out from the visits because she's the one who has to plan out things for her mom to do while she's here, as she's working from home and is with her mom most of the time. I was honest and told her that it was great to see her mom, but it was getting to be exhausting since it felt like we were more limited with the time we could go on our own vacations or do other things as a family. My wife said she understood and would try and discourage her mom from visiting again so soon. I thought this was all settled until my brother-in-law called my wife this weekend and said their mom was upset because my wife said to hold off purchasing airfare because we had other plans coming up and wouldn't be able to accommodate her so soon. My wife asked why mom couldn't go to visit him instead. Brother-in-law also lives out of state from their parents, and he replied that he didn't have the paid time off to entertain her. Now I feel bad because it seems like my mother-in-law is going through an emotional time and feeling like none of her kids want to spend time with her. Am I the asshole? It sounds like you have a good relationship with your in-laws, but it's understandable to feel overwhelmed if the visits are becoming too frequent and impacting your family time. It's important to communicate openly with your wife and find a solution that works for both of you while still maintaining a positive relationship with your mother-in-law. Am I the antagonist for refusing to give my stepdad the role he wants in my wedding in front of his and my mom's families? I, 27 years old female, will be getting married in the next year to 18 months, no date finalized yet. Originally, I had planned to have my stepdad and my paternal grandpa share the father of the bride duties because my dad has been dead since I was 6 years old, and my stepdad has been there for me almost as long, but my grandpa is hugely important and has played the role as most important man in my life after my dad. My stepdad did not want to share the role, and he wanted the walk down the aisle and the father-daughter dance to be just us. He told me he was not okay with my grandpa doing either alone or both with him. He told me when it comes down to it, he was the real dad in my life since I was 7 years old, and while he might not be biologically my dad, he has been married to my mom and taking care of me for 20 years. And he is also the father to all my siblings. And he is also the father to all my siblings, and his place in my life should be honored and not shared with a grandparent just because I lost my dad. So I told him I would have just grandpa then. This was not the end of the conversation, and it came back up during my mom's birthday dinner. He mentioned it in front of his family, aka his parents and siblings, as well as my mom and my mom's family. He told me he wanted to be father of the bride. He wanted to walk me down the aisle. He wanted a father-daughter dance. He wanted a toast. He wanted everything that comes traditionally with this. Because he brought it up in front of them, and because I was slightly annoyed by him bringing it up again without clarifying he was okay with sharing the role, I told him no again. I also told him I had already asked Grandpa. This was in front of both families, and it did start a debate over this. Once I realized I was hated for saying no by his family, and some of my mom's family, including my mom, disliked that I couldn't let him do it, but some were on my side, I decided to leave. My stepdad told me I had humiliated him and made the dinner all about me. I said he brought it up first, and he told me kindness and decency would suggest I not turn him down in front of everyone. I also got a very angry message from one of his siblings and another from the same sibling on behalf of his parents. They told me I had no business treating him this way. When I didn't reply to this person either time, my stepdad told me I was going out of my way to behave inappropriately and to hurt him. The importance of my paternal family in my life has always been an issue for my stepdad and his family, but especially the importance of Grandpa. For many years, my stepdad has been jealous, and his family has commented that I shouldn't need my grandpa because I have my stepdad. His family have expressed their dislike for me several times because I have the relationship with Grandpa that they feel I should have with their son. My stepdad expected an apology, and when he didn't get one, he told me yet again that he didn't like my behavior at the dinner. Am I the asshole? Am I the antagonist? It sounds like navigating the dynamics between your stepdad and Grandpa, each holding significant roles in your life, is challenging. Perhaps a private conversation with your stepdad about your feelings and the importance of honoring both father figures could help to find a compromise that respects everyone's emotions. Communication and understanding from both sides will be key as you plan your special day. Am I the antagonist? Would I be the asshole if I go back to just being a loving grandchild and leave all the extra work to my mother? Hi Reddit, I need advice. I will try my best to make it as simple short as possible. Background: I grew up in a household in which my father beat us kids and my mother used to stand around and watch. My father got help and came around to actually be a decent father, but my mother has always been super selfish and seems to always be pitted against me. Between her and my sister, they made fun of me at my 16th birthday and didn't celebrate my 18th at all. Come to my 21st birthday and my mom decides this is the perfect time to renew their vows and uses all available funds, including my money, to fund this without a single thanks. It's basically a long history of me sacrificing things for her and not even getting a thank you, which also includes saving her from getting fired 3 times. My parents have also been terrible with money, always. I have bailed them out more times than I can count. Their first house, they borrowed money from my granddad and had to sell the house later as they accrued too much debt to sustain it. And recently they have only been able to buy a property due to my dad's parents passing away and leaving him significant inheritance. Current situation. I currently manage a team of care workers for my grandmother. I ensure they are there morning and night. Pay for her food, internet outings, etc. My grandmother has always been a source of light. Growing up, her house was warm and homey and filled with so much love. When my grandmother passes, hopefully not for like another 15-20 years, I know I'm dreaming, her house will be left to my uncle and mother. No issues, I'm not doing any of this expecting anything or any type of compensation. Recently I got talking with my grandmother about her house and realized how much I love it. With this in mind, I spoke to my mother to discuss the idea of me purchasing the house from them when the time arises. I am aware that my uncle wants to sell the property as is, so no issues there. When I spoke to my mother though, she didn't take a single second to process my request to buy the property prior to renovations, before saying you can buy it at full market rates after renovations. What hurts most is that she didn't take a single minute to process or think about my request. As always, it's all about how much money she can get. I wouldn't mind if she had said no, she has the right to deny my request, but I hoped with all the effort and energy I put into helping my grandmother she would at least take a second to think about it. Now I feel hurt and honestly spiteful. I want to make her deal with all the nonsense that comes with handling a team of care workers and finances and having to drop everything because a care worker is sick and unable to go. Would I be the asshole if I go back to just being a loving granddaughter and leave all the extra work to my mother? It sounds like you've gone above and beyond for your family, and it's understandable to feel hurt when your efforts aren't acknowledged. Considering the emotional and financial support you've provided, it's reasonable to reassess the level of involvement you have and prioritize your own well-being too. Would I be the asshole if I asked my friend to talk less about sex when we hang out? I, 22 years old female, have a really close friend, 23 years old female, who ended a pretty long relationship, for our age at least, about half a year ago. After she broke it off, she talked to me about how she was excited to try out new things, experiment and do one-night stands and stuff like that, since she's only ever been with one person whose preferences didn't really line up with hers all the time when it came to intimacy. It didn't take too long before she joined a bondage, discipline, sadism, and masochism club, something she talked to me about for some time before going. It was a success, and she's been going there a lot ever since, even meeting and beginning to date a new guy from there who is a total sweetheart. I was incredibly happy for her and also very proud of her for experimenting. Since she started going, she's become much more open about her preferences and her sex life when we're together, both when it's just the two of us alone and when there are other people from our pretty big friend group present. At first, I didn't really think about it and actually thought it was nice. It's been really great being able to talk about fantasies and kinks without fear of being judged. However, recently I've begun noticing that we pretty much only talk about our sex life when we're together. It's always I did X with Y, and I have this kind of sex toy, wanna see, and I had Z punishment for doing V, and here's a picture of me being tied up and so on. I don't always want to talk about sex, so I often try to change the subject, like have you been going on any dates with your new boyfriend? But she immediately turns it back to sex with stuff, like yeah, I've been to his place and watched a movie, and then he gave me 10 orgasms in a row. I can barely make a joke or say anything without it immediately being turned into something sexual. I think I'm hesitant to ask if we can talk about it less when we hang out because she's talked to me about how she was a bit scared that people would judge her for being into the things she is. And I really don't want her to think that I'm judging her or don't want to talk about her sex life. There's definitely space for that in a friendship. I just don't want it to take up everything in the friendship. She talks a lot about her sex life and when our friend group hangs out too. I really don't want to talk about sex in larger groups, so I usually just kind of sit those conversations out. But our friend group is pretty open about these things and seem to have no problem whatsoever, and it only makes me feel like even more of an asshole for sometimes thinking that I don't necessarily want to talk about that stuff. Would I be the asshole? Would I be the antagonist if I asked my friend if we could talk less about sex? You're not in the wrong for wanting to shift the conversation away from constant discussions about sex, as it's important to maintain a balance in your friendship. It's perfectly reasonable to express your feelings respectfully to your friend, ensuring that the friendship remains fulfilling for both of you. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.